So
Sure.
when I read Western media about China, Bloomberg, FT, FP, so and so forth, they say things like China's economy is facing headwinds, that it's slowing. Some are still using the term collapse. So, in your assessment, how is China's economy doing?
Well, it looks fine to me. I think it's kind of funny, like all this complaining from Bloomberg and Financial Times and so forth, because, and I'm just going to list all the reasons they give for why China's economy is collapsing or doing poorly. Um, First of all, China exports too much stuff or has overcapacity, which that sounds to me like a good problem to have. I would rather have overcapacity than undercapacity. Um, Chinese people aren't spending enough money, which like I personally I don't think that like mindless consumption is really something to celebrate. In fact, like the world, like one of the big problems in the world is that like Westerners, especially Americans, consume disproportionately more resources than the rest of the world. And if the whole world consumed at the rate that Americans did, like climate change would be unsolvable, and we would all have the climate apocalypse, and we wouldn't survive as a civilization. So I think that like the answer is that Westerners need to consume less eventually. Um, let's see, the yuan is deflating. The deflation in China, like that's particularly funny because like the U.S. in the U.S. Americans have been like we've just suffered like very horrible inflation in the pandemic shortly after the pandemic began, which is now returned to normal more or less. But like just because inflation is normal, like the prices are still inflated. Like you have to deflate to get the prices back to where they used to be. So if your currency is deflating, that means that the savings that Chinese people are being scolded for not spending are becoming more valuable. Also good. Uh, by the way, the traditional like economic wisdom, quote unquote, for why deflation is bad is that supposedly it will drive down wages, which is also not happening. Wages are still going up in China according to the latest statistical data. Housing prices dropping. That's especially funny to the 100 million plus Americans, myself included, who can't afford to buy a home. Um, the stock market and GDP, of course, are supposedly doing badly. First of all, who cares about the stock market? That's for rich people. Secondly, all this moaning about GDP is, I mean, especially amusing because China's GDP actually grew by I think it was 5% last year, or very close to that. Um, Most Western countries can only dream of like that level of growth. But if we're going to talk about like whether China's GDP is real or not, because that's like the level of cope that you see establishment folks have about this. Like we should talk about like how accurate GDP itself is. Like let's take a look at the American economy. Like how much of the American GDP growth is just trading financial assets.